So this week we are doing a song called Fierce by Jesus Culture. You probably know this song. It's been out for a year or so now. And what I love most about this song, I think, is the way it describes the love of God. And when we think of love, especially in our culture, it can come across as very soft and fluffy and just kind of nice and pretty. Love is a just a very beautiful thing, but not a very strong thing. And so when this song describes God's love as being fierce, it describes God's love as a hurricane that you cannot escape. That's something that's considerably more powerful than the soft clouds and rainbows that we normally think of when we think of love and what that means. So I love the visual aspect of this song. But what I want to talk about today is not necessarily so much how to play this song, but how to play worship songs in general. Worship music is its own style. There's a lot to it, and you can find yourself doing a lot of different styles within it if you want. But to get that big anthem sound, you got to play a certain way. So in the past, in the more rock-oriented days of the late 90s, early 2000s, there was kind of this idea that you would play nice and clean for the verses, and then you'd hit your distortion and just go into major overdrive for the choruses. And that doesn't really apply anymore. It's not necessarily wrong, but it's just not what is being done right now. And so if you want to sound modern and current, you'll want to update your sound a little bit. What's happening now is pretty much everything across the board is very, very clean with just a hint of overdrive on it. They're called transparent overdrives. If you've got a pedal that you're using, you'll run it through an amp and pick out a nice transparent overdrive. And what that does is it doesn't affect the signal so much as it just gives you more signal. So what I'm doing, because I don't have my pedals hooked up right now, is I'm running through an orange amp, and I've got my gain just enough to get it to break up a little bit. So if you can hear it, it's a pretty clean sound, especially when I play light. When I strum light, it comes across very nice and clean. When I strum a little bit heavier, it starts to break up a little bit more, but never does it sound dirty. It sounds very crisp, very clean all the way through. And that's what we want to go for. All the way through. Even your most intense, heavy song that you're going to be playing, that's the sound you're going to want. So then how do we strum that sound? So a lot of electric guitarists usually start on acoustic guitar because most parents buy their kids acoustic guitars first, and then eventually they work their way up into electric guitars. So of course, acoustic guitar style is to just strum 16th notes as fast as you can. And electric guitar doesn't really work that way. Electric guitar is a lot more about finesse. So in the song Fierce especially, there's no fast strumming at all. It's all these power punches right on the downbeat of each of those new measures. And so what we end up having is a nice G chord, and then to D, B minor, and then your A. And that's it. The second guitar will actually only play single notes down below, and then slide up, and then slide back down, and that's all they do. It's very, very simple, but it gives it this really big punch right at the downbeat that gives that song a lot more power. So the other thing that I wanted to show you is sort of the setup for playing lead. So a lot of people think that lead guitar means shredding. So if you play lead, then you're soloing all the time. But that's not the case. Lead guitar is basically playing those higher notes above the rhythm. So let me back up. If you're playing rhythm, first of all, you're going to want to just pick one or two notes that you want to play. So even if you're playing open chords, like I'm doing here, you don't have to play all 6 strings. Like even if you're playing a G chord that could call for all 6 strings, you don't want to play all of them all the time. Save some of that. Instead, pick some in the middle that give you that nice mid-range. And then allow your other guitars to fill in the space around it. Because especially if you are the one playing that middle, and then your other rhythm guitar player is hitting these notes, and then you've got a guitar up top that's hitting these notes, then you can have a really cool sound all together when they come together, as opposed to playing all those strings all at once. You end up breaking up your sound a little too much. So if you're playing lead guitar, what you can do is come up high and make basically barred G chords. And so what I mean by that is, if you know what a G chord looks like, you would play it with your 3, your 2, and your 4 fingers, and your 1 is basically free. It'd be hard to bar that right down here, but the further up you get on the fretboard, the easier that becomes. So if you can imagine, so if you're playing a G here, if you move him up here, then that suddenly becomes A. If you move him up 2 more, that's B. Move him up 1 more, that's C. And you can find that also by counting your way up the fretboard. So A, B, C, and D. We're in the key of D, so you can play a G chord right up here. Well, you play a G finger position up there, but it ends up being a D chord is what I mean. And so this works really well with Fierce because they have a nice high guitar that's playing as well. So then you have to know your theory just a little bit. If G is the 1, then C is going to be 4, D is going to be 5. We're in the key of D, so D is your 1 chord, G is going to be your 4, and A is going to be your 5. So what you end up doing is you have to kind of transpose that in your head pretty quickly. And so if you want to play a G chord, you end up making a C chord position by adding this finger here. And just in case you're confused, what I mean by C chord position is you would use your 2 and your 4 just in the same way that you would use your 2 and your 4 down here to make a C chord. But now you're up here and you're barring. And then a D chord position would be like that. So what it ends up looking like if you're playing the same chords for Fierce. There's your 4 chord. Like a tidal wave crashing over me, rushing into me. Your love is fierce. And so that, even though that sounds really simple, and it is, it sounds amazing when coupled over top of that low. And that's what you get on the record. That's what they are playing. And it sounds really great when it's all together. So the main thing to remember when you're playing electric guitar, especially if there's more than one electric, is know your individual parts and find those parts and separate them so that you're not playing over top of each other. And it'll sound really good all together, I promise.